Welcome, dear children, and all lovers of good fairy tales to my channel. This is channel dedicated to you. One times a week I will publish good night story. My name is Aliana and I will read for you. This is one wonderful story. This story comes from Portuguese. The princess who lost her rings. Long time ago, there lived a lovely princess who owned the most beautiful rings in the whole world. She had rings set with diamonds and rings set with pearls. She had rings set with rubies and rings set with sapphires. She had rings set with emeralds and turquoise and amethyst and every other kind of precious stone. She had rings which had no precious stone in them, but which were wonderfully decorated with fine and delicate carving, wrought with great skill. This princess lived in a magnificent palace, surrounded by a high wall. Her own apartments opened upon a pleasant balcony. From the balcony she could see the blue waters of the ocean and the tall trees of the forest. Here she liked to pass her days. In a corner of the balcony there was a basin, and pitchers of silver always kept filled with the water in order that the princess maybe wash her hand on the balcony instead of having to go inside the house. Whenever she washed her hand, she always removed the ring she was wearing that day. Some days it was one ring, and other days it was another. But whatever rings it happened to be, the princess always took it off carefully when she washed her hand. One day a pretty white rabbit came up to the balcony to play with the princess. That day the princess was wearing her best diamond ring. She removed it very carefully when she washed her hand. Then it disappeared. She knew that the rabbit must have stolen it. The next day the rabbit came again, and that day the princess lost her best emerald rings. She was very sure that the rabbit must have stolen that too. However, she liked to play with the rabbit, so he said nothing to her father, the king, about the lost ring. Every day the rabbit came, and every day there was a ring missing. The princess had a large box full of rings in the beginning, but one morning she opened the box and saw that it was entirely empty. She remembered then that she had put on her last ring the morning before. The princess became so sad that she would not go out to the balcony to play with the white rabbit. Every day she grew sadder and sadder. At last her father, the king, noticed it. She is sad now, and once she was the happiest princess in the whole world. I cannot imagine what the trouble is, replied the queen. Perhaps she is lonely. Let us send for the storytellers of the kingdom to come and tell their stories to entertain her. Accordingly, the king sent for the storytellers in the whole kingdom. All the storytellers had to come to the palace, even if were old. Now it so happened that in the kingdom there were two old women who were very strange. They know the most interesting story of anybody, but it took them so long to reach the palace that they forgot all their best stories of the way. What story you are going to tell the princess? One of the old women asked the other. I can't remember a single one of my story, said the other old woman. It has taken my old legs so long to travel the road to the palace that now that we are almost there, I can't think of a single story. The two old women tried to remember some of their stories, but they could not think of any. They were almost to the royal palace, too. What shall we do if we can't remember our story? Asked first old woman. Well, I have to learn some new stories, replied the other. Just then they spied a queer sight. There was a little donkey traveling along the road. On his back was a load of wood. What a queer donkey, cried the first old woman. Let us follow along after him. Suppose we shall be able to tell a story about him, replied the other. The old woman followed the donkey into the forest. There was a little thatched roof house in the forest, and before the house there was a fire burning. A kettle of something which smelled good was boiling merrily over the fire. The donkey beside the fire and left his load of wood. The two old women stopped beside the fire too. What do you suppose is cooking in this kettle? Asked one of the old women. It smells so good, I'm going to taste and see, said the other. She started to taste, but as she was about to stick in her finger, she heard a strange deep voice which seemed to come out of the little thatched house. Do not touch, it is not yours, is what the voice said. The two old women went up to the door of the house, and one of them peeped through the keyhole. Inside the house she saw a pretty white rabbit playing with a box full of rings. Suddenly the white rabbit pulled off his skin and changed it into a handsome prince. What would I give to see the owner of these rings? Cried the prince. The two old women hurried away from the little house in the forest. They were frightened at the queer doing there. I know the story to tell the princess, cried one of the old women, when she had recovered from her fright. I'll tell her how I peeped through the keyhole and saw the rabbit change his skin. I know what I will, the princess, said the other old woman. I'll tell her how I followed the donkey and what the strange voice said to me when I tried to taste the good-smelling broth in the kettle. We must keep saying over our stories so we won't forget them, said the first old woman. We must hurry on our way to the royal palace and get there with we remember them, said the other. The old woman hurried on their way to the palace as fast as their old legs could carry them. They rehearsed their story over and over along the way so they would not forget them. Many storytellers had told their tales to the princess. They were jolly tales, too, but the princess was not in the least cheered by them. She remembered his lost ring, even when she was listening to the story. If the story cannot make the princess happy, who can? Asked the king in despair. I'm sure I don't know, replied the queen. She always used to like a story. Finally, the two old women reached the royal palace and went to tell their tales to the princess. The first old woman told the story of the donkey and the broth in the kettle. The princess did not appear to be particularly interesting, even when the old woman told about the strange, deep voice which said, "Do not touch, it is not yours." Cold chills, however, ran up and down the spines of the king and queen and all the courts when she came to the part of the tale. Next the other old woman told how she peeped through the keyhole and the little thatched house in the forest and saw the white rabbit change his skin. The pretty dark eyes of the princess sparkled when the old woman said about a rabbit, and she leaned forward in her chair ardently. Oh, dear little princess looked like her own happy self again, for the first time in age, whispered the king of the queen. When the old woman told the rabbit's word, what would I not give to see the owner of this ring? The princess clapped her hands. Take me to see the rabbit at once, she cried. The king and queen and old Cordon went with the princess to find the white rabbit. The two old women went first. The two old women went first to point out the way, and as this old woman moved very slowly, at last they drew near the forest. There was the donkey, and feet moving along the road with a load of wood on his back. The two old women, the princess, the king and queen, and all the courtiers followed the donkey into the deep forest to the door of a little house. Before the house the fire was burning, something which smelled good was boiling in the kettle. The princess stuck in her finger to try it. Take it, it is yours, said the strange deep voice from the little house. The princess was so surprised that she forgot to taste the good smell brought. She ran the door of the house and peeped through the keyhole. There was the white rabbit playing with a box full of rings set with diamonds and pearls, and rings set with no precious stone at all, but carried delicate with great skill. What would I give to see the owner of this ring, said the rabbit, as he pulled off his skin and changed it in a handsome prince. Here's the owner of the rings, cried the princess. She is here at your door. The door of the little house in the deep forest swiftly opened, and the prince received the princess in his arms. Your words have broken my enchantment, he cried. Now that at last the voice of the owner of this ring is heard at my door, I'll never have to put on my rabbit skin again. Be careful with your belongings and keep them safe, because it may be Not just be a good rabbit who will bring back the things that have going missing. Thank you for listening Story for Good Night. If you like this video, make sure you like it and subscribe on my channel. Be sure to press the bell to get alerts when my videos are coming out. If you have any special desire to read your favorite story, write to me under the video and comment my mail address, Facebook or Instagram profile. See the description of the video. To the next video, sleep well and listen spoken soft my stories. Good night.